If we continued preliminary results for this year's ISAT, again, this will be our sophomores taking this test. The preliminary has our English language arts at 69, almost 70% of our students being proficient or advanced in the English language arts area, 5% higher than the district average and 7% higher than the state. The math has not been fully graded yet, so we don't have the results on that, but we're pretty excited about where we are so far on the English language arts for ISAT. So that's all of our ISAT. Moving on to the PSAT. So this is a test that all of our sophomores take in the fall. And last fall, when our current sophomores took this, 46% hit what they call the benchmarks for college and career ready. They've got two benchmarks, and 46% of our students hit both of those benchmarks, 39% in the district and 42% across the state. So we're performing quite a bit better than the state average, and we're pretty excited to see where that continues. The next trend on that is our national average is 48%. So our next step is to meet and exceed that national average and start pushing towards over 50% of our students meeting both benchmarks for college and career readiness. Our SATs, so this is our SATs from 2 years ago. So this is our graduating class last year, our students that have already moved on. Performed quite well, above the district and state average in all three areas, critical reading, math, and writing. Very exciting to see that. Those students are now all off and throughout the whole world and did a great job there. We had a little bit of a dip last year with our seniors that will graduate this year, and we've been talking about that and what we need to do. And it's interesting though, this test is now obsolete. The test that they took here, SAT no longer uses. And so what will really be the interesting trend is to see what happened just a couple weeks ago when our juniors took the SAT, which was a revamped, a new version of the SAT, and those results should be out any day now, really. All right, our graduation rate. Last year we graduated 84.5% of the cohort that started as freshmen. So the state does things a little... Thank you, somebody clapped. I've been waiting 4 slides for that, thank you. Almost 85% of our students graduated. And the way the state does this is they take the group as they started in 9th grade. And so some of those students that we had, they've spread out all over the state. So there's a number of those students that we didn't have any contact with at all at Compass Academy that are included in that 85%. So great that we were able to meet that. District 72%, and the state average is just shy of 79%. Of those students that graduated, 57% of those students went straight on to a college or a university. Idaho state average is 48%, and Bonneville County is also 48%. So another great statistic that we saw our students doing very well there. So the question is it working? And we would say, yeah, we think it is working. There's lots of areas where we want to improve and continue to grow, but we feel confident now after 4 years to say that it works and that students are performing at or above their peers. Now, to get into some of the exciting stuff for tonight. Some of you might recognize this. This is not the iPhone 7. This is the first iPhone, the original iPhone. It came out in 2007. And when it came out, a lot of people thought, oh wow, this has a lot of neat features. You can text message people, you can call people, you can use the internet, check your email, but it was pretty limited. And it wasn't until 3 years later, the same amount of time that it took us to graduate our first class, 3 years that we got some very cool features, such as cut, copy, and paste. A feature that now we look at and say, that should be in every device. We also got this really cool thing, it was called a landscape keyboard. So you no longer had to text on the skinny side, you could turn your phone sideways and text. But it took 3 years to get that. And then this little icon, some of you might be familiar with, the App Store. There was no such thing as an App Store, Google Play, any of those things until 3 years after the iPhone was originally introduced. And so what this shows us is, when you look back, there are things that took a number of years to come about, but then when you look back at them, you say, well, why wasn't that there to begin with? Why didn't that happen? And so some of the things you see tonight, you may think, well, why didn't you do that when you first opened? We weren't ready yet, and there's some things that we think we're really ready for now, and we're ready to move forward. So we're going to talk about some of those. The first piece, though, is when we opened Compass, we added a tagline to our name, and that tagline was "Learning Redesigned." And the whole idea of Compass was to look at how can we do classrooms differently? How can we do integrate classes so that students learn differently? How do we present the material in a way that students can learn it in a different way? And so learning redesign has been the motto or the tagline for all of our work and all the things that we've done. We've tried to look at, well, does that really change how we do things, or are we just doing it the way we've always done? And so some of the things tonight that we talk about are new things. So some of you may be familiar with Echo. How many of you have seen New Echo? Go ahead and cheer a little bit. Okay, New Echo, we were selected to be one of the pilot schools for New Echo. And with that came all kinds of bugs and things that we got to be a part of fixing. And New Echo, we've been using now all of the third trimester. And the great part is as we've started to use it, we've started to see new tools and new ways that we can continue to help our students. The to-do list has helped so many students figure out what they have to do right now. Calendars, notifications, lots of different things that we've been able to use to communicate better with students. And we haven't even met the tip of the iceberg on this. There are so many features that are coming and so many features that already exist in Echo that we haven't even tapped into yet. And so that's one of the big pieces that we look forward to in the fall is now that our facilitators will have a whole summer to really look at and test and try out those things, Echo will continue to become a bigger and bigger piece of what we do. One of the key things, though, that we want to make sure people know is Echo is not online learning. Our students don't come in, sit in the classroom, all on Echo and don't talk to each other. Echo is just a tool that we use to pass information back and forth. And it really is a means for students to organize and gather all the information that they need to really make their projects bigger and better every time. I'm going to bring Mr. Hadley up here and have him talk a little bit about class choice and Power School and how we're doing our scheduling differently than the way it's been done in the past. So Mr. Hadley, round of applause for him.
Thank you. A little bit louder applause would help me. I get nervous doing this stuff, as you can probably tell. Right? Thanks for coming tonight. I know a lot of you sitting out there are wondering when you get your schedules. And the reason that I'm here tonight is to talk to you about the changes that we're making, being very innovative, how we're looking at life after high school, and trying to take the next step, the next iPhone, and make it more meaningful for your students and for you as parents. This year, what we're going to do is a new thing, and it makes me nervous a little bit, but so far it's been working out really well. This year we are going to use both class choice and Power School for our registration purposes. In the past, what we've done district-wide is the first thing that we would do is we ask our students to request the courses that they want. And with that request, then we take those requests and as building administrators and counselors, we would build a master schedule based on those requests. And then with, at Compass, we would take those building master schedule and create a course for your students or a schedule for your students. And then what we have implemented is class choice. And when we've taken the schedule from Power School, we have imported that into class choice. And students then could go into class choice and manipulate their schedule to how they want that to work. And it took a while for our students and our faculty to catch on to how class choice works. And right now I think it's working out really well for our students. But we're going to make another change. And one of the big changes that we're making for next year is we have taken away the requests. What we're finding is when we have a request for a class, a few things happen. One, I requested it, I should get it. Sometimes it doesn't work when you're building a big high school schedule. Oftentimes you do get the requests and the classes that you want, sometimes you don't. But more importantly, it's important for us at Compass to build our schedule based on the strengths of our facilitators and having facilitators to teach specific courses and courses that will get your students ready for life after high school. And so we have taken away the request portion, and we've used the strengths of our facilitators to build our schedule this year. So we have now created our master schedule without your requests, because now we know our strengths of our facilitators, and we've been doing this a few years. We know how things are working. So what is happening next is we're going to build that master schedule, which we have. We are going to import the master schedule into class choice. And our students, beginning here very shortly, we'll talk about that, our students will then build their schedule. Instead of Power School building their schedule for them and then making drastic changes throughout the school year, our students will now use the master schedule and the strengths of our facilitators to build their schedule. And so we will open up class choice for our students, and they will have a blank slate. And they will then take class choice. The incoming freshmen that are 8th graders, I will be over at your school next week. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But the benefits of this is now you get to build your schedule and create the schedule that you want based off of the strengths that we have within our school. So that is a drastic change. I think that it is a good thing. Also, on top of that, that's how things are done at college. When you're at college, you never request a class. You go and put that class in your schedule. So once again, thinking of future places that you're going and next steps for you guys, this will give you good practice for life after high school when you, for those of you that join and go into college. So that's what we're going to be doing for class choice and registration in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm extremely excited about how this will look and what this will mean for you as students that are out there, and for the parents and the input that you guys have in creating the schedule that you would like to be successful, both here at Compass and at life after high school. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley. We're going to talk more about all the pieces that go into this master schedule, because a lot of the stuff that we're doing is going to affect how you create your schedule. But to let you know, we will start and open this up starting tomorrow. So juniors who will be seniors next year. Do I have any juniors in here that are going to be seniors? Oh, that's pretty weak. Class of 2017. Class of 2017. That's even weaker. Starting tomorrow, you're going to be able to create your schedule. Sophomores becoming juniors on Thursday, freshmen becoming sophomores on Friday, and then those of you who are 8th graders that we're going to welcome you here next year, Mr. Hadley and some students will be over next week to help you build your schedule as well. So that's all coming up here in the next few days, and we'll leave that open until school's out for students to adjust and add and change and set up their schedule just the way they want to for next year. So that's hopefully something we want to be excited about. I guess not. In the world of academia, these 3 things rule a school: busing, lunch, and the master schedule. And they end up being the parameters that either put us in a box or stifle the things that we can really do. And so when I was looking at the master schedule and someone said, you know, how are you going to change this? How are you going to get this to meet your needs? These are the 3 things that had to be tackled in order for us to really move forward. And I brought this up to my supervisor, Mr. Randy Hurley, and he said, boy, this is a bold move, because these are the things that always really get in the way of master schedules. So we're going to tackle them. First of all, busing. Those of you who ride the bus know the bus starts at your stop and takes you to either Skyline or IF, and then from there you switch, get on a shuttle that then brings you over to Compass. Shuttle's just a fancy term for another bus. And what this does, though, is it really limits what we can do, because we lose 40 minutes of instruction because of this. 20 minutes on either end of the day in order to get our students to and from the other high schools for them to then go to head to home. So That's a big piece for us. We want to really get that 40 minutes back in some way. And so one of the things we've been working with Ralph Frost, who's the Director of Transportation, is to set up routes that will have strategic stops throughout town that will allow busing to go from those stops directly to Compass and kind of cut out the middleman, allowing us to start or end school at different times than what the other schools are doing, and not lose that 40 minutes of instruction because of busing. So we're going to talk more what that looks like in a minute, but the idea is to have shuttles and direct lines that will bring students to and from Compass, allowing us to open up our schedule a little bit more and provide more classes and more class opportunities for students. Then lunch. Lunch is always an interesting time. For 35 minutes during the day, our entire school shuts down. There's no learning, there's no classes, there are students all over the place trying to find a moment to grab a bite to eat. That doesn't make sense when you have a schedule that allows for collaboration time and open spots like it does in a college or university setting. And even in the workplace, a lot of workplaces now, they don't shut down for lunch. People take lunch when it fits their schedule best, where, between meetings or whatever the case might be. And so this has really stifled some of the things that we've done, because for 35 minutes, we haven't been able to get out of this lunch box, so to speak. And so what we want to do is we want to have a cafeteria that's open and allow students to eat when it's time to eat. And so what we do is we take that and we put it overlapping 2 class periods. We lighten the load that's scheduled during those class periods, and then students can pick which of those 2 periods they want for their lunchtime. Cafeteria is open for the last half of one period and the first part of the second period, allowing students to get a full 30 minutes of lunch and be able to pick up their food in the cafeteria and use the rest of the period for collaboration or for a long lunch if that's what they really need. So just adjusting that, just that little bit, allows us to gain back that 30 to 35 minutes of instructional time. So between the busing and the lunchtime, we're gaining back over 70 minutes of instructional time, which is really key when we're trying to get our students to learn more and more things. So with that, we're able to now tackle the master schedule. And the master schedule will look a bit different next year. The first thing is all of our classes will start on the hour, and they will be a full hour long. So no more of this 10:32 or 11:57 is when my class starts. They will start on the hour. Try to get at least a little on that one. First period through 7th period, 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock. But then we thought, well, what about... There's got to be some flexibility even for our facilitators, because they haven't gotten the flexibility. So what if we changed things just a little bit and we added a 0 period? So now we can get 8 periods in a day. And what we do is we then adjust it so that there's kind of an early shift and a late shift. We've got classes going from 0 to 6. We've got classes going from 1st to 7th. And both facilitators and students can find the time that fits best for them and for their schedule. So Tuesday through Friday, we'll have a schedule that is 0 period starting at 8 o'clock, all the way through a 4 o'clock dismissal. Classes starting on the hour. 3rd and 4th hour will be scheduled lightly so that students can get lunch. And 0 period will also be light, since the busing will be just a little bit different there. Now, we have this late start Monday thing, though. That kind of throws a wrench in things, but is a great time for us to be able to work together and align some things. We'll talk about what happens during that time later. But what we'll do on Mondays is we will just remove 0 hour. There'll be no 0 hour. And first period will start at 9:30. We'll have 55-minute periods. Still the same idea for lunch, and a 3:55 dismissal instead of 4 o'clock. Making our schedule for the week look basically like this. Tuesday through Friday on that second one. But then what you see here is the orange is busing and the red is lunch. So we have a direct bus that will stop at strategic locations throughout the district to gather up students to be here roughly about 9 o'clock. And then we'll have the shuttles that will continue to run from the other high schools, getting students here just before 10. We'll have lunch in the middle. We'll have the shuttles again in the middle of 7th period for students that have already finished, and then the direct busing again at the end of the day. Tuesday will look very similar, but we'll not have the direct busing in the morning. We're still working on that one, just with the number of buses we have and the number of schools we have. We were unable to to get that in the morning for the rest of the week. But that allows students that have transportation can sign up for 0-hour classes. The rest will be here in plenty of time for first period. So that'll be our master schedule next year as far as what time classes start, what time we start school, and what time school ends. Sometimes working hard. Future focus. This is a class that we've revamped each year. It's an idea that we really want our students to have connections with an adult all the way through high school, where they can meet with somebody and have somebody to help them and to help them get on a path towards success. And so to talk a little bit about future folks, I want to bring up Mr. Eric Durfee. He's one of our facilitators. This conversation came on we were heading to San Diego for a conference, and between here and Pocatello, because it's cheaper to fly out of Pocatello for whatever reason, we tackled this and had a good conversation that went on for 2 or 3 days afterwards, and so I'll let him share kind of our thoughts for Future Focus next year.
All right, so it's our 4th year, and every year we've kind of tweaked Future Focus. It started out as a leadership, and then it was, we've changed the name. We've tried a lot of different things. The idea has always been kind of solid in our minds, but getting it across and figuring out the way to do it has been, we've kind of gone through some changes. The idea has always been that the students have their classes, they got their English and their science and their math, but there are a lot of things in life, for them right now and life after high school that are very important, that are not English or math or science or history. So the idea has always been to, provide some opportunities for them to gain the skills and attributes and experiences they need to be able to be successful here and after high school. And then 2, to have one person in the building, kind of the adult in the building, that is their go-to person, their contact, sort of a mentor or advisor. And so that's kind of been the idea. And so the idea for what we're going to do next year is we're shortening it down. We're going to move it to 1 day a week, and with a very specific focus. So once a month-ish, we'll be looking at some like all-school activities, and the goal of those is, as always, just to kind of build school culture, and we want to work a lot more next year with creating some activities that will interconnect the different age groups, so that we get some of the upperclassmen mixing with the underclassmen and learning names and getting to know each other, making sure that it's a small school and we want it to feel like a family, so we want to make sure those connections are made. So that will happen once a month-ish. The other days of the month, we'll have a very specific focus. So you'll be doing one of 2 things. You will either be going, one of those options is these focus sessions that we're going to be working on. So each week that we have focus sessions, there will be a variety of different workshops, and led by facilitators or students, and you'll see a list of what's available in focus workshops that week. And the idea is to have just different options for workshops that people could go to for whatever they want to learn about that's not their typical English, math, science, history. So we tried this out a month or so ago, and we had some, one of the facilitators did a bread making workshop. Super random, but that's a really cool skill to have. Some of the students have asked about things like, when I get to college, I have no idea how to cook a meal for myself. I have no idea how to take care of myself when I'm all by myself. And they've asked for things like, could you guys teach us some of that kind of stuff? So these focus sessions will be the opportunity to do some of those kinds of things, sort of life after high school skills, but also just some personal passion skills kind of things. If somebody's interested in learning some video editing or special effects editing or something, there might be a workshop for that. So that's kind of the idea there, that when we have focus sessions, you can go to a focus session and then students choose which one to attend and then just kind of report back on what they learned. The other option would be these check-ins with your facilitator. And so we've set it up so that I have juniors this year in my focus class, and I've been with them for a couple of years now. And so I'll have them again next year as seniors, and the idea is that I get to know them well enough that I know their plans and kind of where they're at and their struggles, and I can kind of be a go-to person in the building for that. So during these focus sessions, the students will either be going to a focus session or they'll be checking in with their facilitator. And the idea is that they will check in once a month, just come and talk. So my students would come and talk to me for 5-10 minutes. We would check in on things like their grades, progress toward graduation, and then very specifically, we want to look with all of them about post-high school plans. We want to make sure that they know where they're heading and that they're on the right track as far as classes they're taking. The other thing we want to look at with them next year that we're going to help them build early on is sort of an individual education plan for every student. That concept of an IEP has been there for a long time, that certain students get an IEP, and it's always seemed kind of silly that every student is an individual and every student should probably have an individual education plan. So the idea there is that we're going to help them build that, and that things like I know that I'm struggling with writing, and so in my individual education plan that I'm going to talk to my focus facilitator about, I know that I need to be seeking some extra help in writing, and so that's something I'm going to work on this year. And then I, as the focus facilitator, would be checking in with him and saying, how's this going? Have you been visiting a tutor? How are you progressing on that goal? During those days, you've got that option of going to a focus session or checking in with your facilitator. And the idea there is that we tighten that up, the focus class, and give it a really specific purpose so that the students understand this is what it's for, and we feel like it's going to have a very meaningful effect for them, and so we're very excited about that change for next year.
Thank you, Mr. Durfee. It's always a struggle when you're trying to take something that has been very traditional in the seeking for that advisor piece and whatnot, but wanting it to fit in a model that's very different. And so as we've watched this progress, it's actually been kind of fun to look back and see where it was when we first opened to where we're proposing to be next year, and it's miles and miles apart from what we thought this class would be. So it's an exciting piece to help us keep track of students, also provide a lot of those skills and attributes that we want our students to have. So next, this year we hired somebody to fulfill a position that's new to Compass and really new to District 91. We hired a Dean of Students, and so we, after a number of interviews, we ended up pulling Mrs. Smead out of the English classroom and brought her into the office to be our Dean of Students. She's spent a lot of the year helping students who have been at risk or struggling and giving them some of the skills that they need to be successful. And we've also given her some different tasks, especially when it comes to college and career readiness. And so we'll have Mrs. Smead come up here and tell you about some opportunities that we're continuing to build as Compass grows.
Thank you. It's good to be here. You know, I love this school a lot. Most of you who know me know that I love it so much that my daughter goes here. She's a junior. And I was just thinking the other day, in some of my past experiences, because so many kids will come to the office and say, Mrs. Smead, we need to meet. And typically that's been because somebody is talking crap on them, quote, or somebody is flirting with their girlfriend, etc. But in this school, it seems like those meetings are typically, I want to be a doctor, what should I do next year? Or I want to become certified in information technology, can you help me find a good direction? So it's just really fun to be able to continually be challenged by students who want a lot of opportunity. And I will tell you, I think that this is a school with a lot of opportunity. So some new things that are coming. The state has gone ahead and designated $4,125 per student from 7th grade through 12th grade. And yes, it is my understanding that even if you're a junior going into senior year, that you have this full amount of money that you can use to enhance and further your education. There's several different opportunities and ways that you can use this. It's called Advanced Opportunities. Have any of you heard of the Advanced Opportunities? Yay! Fantastic. So I have an older daughter, and what cost us hundreds of dollars in college credits and hundreds of dollars in AP exams, now the state realizes, I think, how very critical these things are to students and that every student should have these opportunities. So they're going to help us make that happen. All right, so the first thing is our AP classes. These are advanced placement classes. Students take a rigorous course all through the year. The ones that we offer here are Junior English, English Language and Composition, Human Geography, U.S. History, Chemistry, Physics, Calculus, and Biology. And at the end of the school year, they take some 4-hour exams that are absolutely exhausting and completely probably invigorating. It was fun watching them take these exams this year. And depending on the college, the AP exam is recognized all across the United States and internationally. Depending on the score that the students get, they can actually take these and get credits at whatever university they're going to. So those tests, $92 a piece, you can pay for it in advanced opportunities. Next, we have just a sprinkling of classes, and this is something that we hope is going to continue to grow. In fact, we had probably about, I'd say about a third of our faculty met today to talk about teaching dual enrollment credits so that students can be earning college credit at the same time that they're earning high school credit. And what is wonderful is that a class, if you took it at Idaho State or Boise or CSI, U of I, these classes would cost over $1,000 to take at a university that as a high school student, you can take these same classes and it's less than $200 and paid for by the state. So this upcoming year, we will definitely have business, Spanish, English, composition, and English lit that are all going to allow our students to get dual credit for both high school and college. Additionally, we have a lot of students already taking advantage of this. We have Idaho Digital Learning, where students can take additional AP classes. We actually had a student from American Heritage this year who came over and took a microeconomics exam here because he had taken this class at American Heritage but needed to come take the test somewhere. So again, there is really no end to the number of classes that students can take through Idaho Digital Learning, and they can take these during the summer. So students can come and work with Mr. Hadley and our staff to get started on those and get ahead, or just take some really interesting classes that they would not have had the opportunity to take otherwise. All right, and finally, one thing that's very exciting, I have had so many of our students come in and let me know that they want to work in a medical field, and I think that may be because we have the college and technical education programs right here in our building for pharmacy, emergency medical technician, certified nursing assistant. We have culinary arts here. These are all like professional courses that students can take, and they take them with students from Idaho Falls and Skyline, Ryrie, Shelley, and Perth. These are exciting because not only do the students take the courses, they get 6 college credits for taking the courses, and they can actually become certified in several areas. We have had students who leave high school and are making $15, $20 an hour as a certified nursing assistant while they're attending college because they got the certification. And guess who will pay for the certification? You got it, advanced opportunities. So we just have a whole bunch of very exciting things happening, and we're delighted that our students are going to get the chance. As you can see, there is a wide area of interest for our students, so we just look forward to talking to each of them and working with them to individually create something that's going to take them as far as they can go while they're here and get them excited about the next step. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Speed. So to be clear, these are not things just available to Compass. These are available to all students in the state of Idaho. The courses that we offered were shown on those specific AP and dual enrollment slides, but this is a great movement for a lot of us to be able to help students continue to progress and get the credits that they need. The laptop has probably been both a great thing in your home and something that you wish never came into your home. And we have worked closely with the technology department to try to continue to provide that tool for the students, but also provide it in a way that it's going to help the students. So what I'm about to share is the plan for this next fall. There are some things that are pending this summer, but I felt like maybe you'd want to hear some of the plans for. Typical lifespan of a laptop is anywhere from 3 to 5 years, especially in a school. And we want to try to extend the life of ours so that we're not spending the money that we don't need to yet. And so we're taking the laptops that are still in good condition, which is the majority of them, and we're going to do some upgrades this summer and try to get as much life out of these machines as we can. And so some of the upgrades that we are looking at is, first of all, we're going to put in a solid state drive in all the computers. For those of you who are computer techie, nerds, whatever you want to call yourself, that just means that there's going to be no moving parts in the hard drive, so it's going to be a little bit faster and be able to help the students get their work done quicker. I don't know if that helps with the updates, but hopefully it does for those students that know what I'm talking about. The next piece, these next two are still a little bit up in the air, but the plan is that it will happen, is we're also going to move to Windows 10 this coming year. Some of you may be excited about that, some of you may hate me for that, but to keep things moving and stay current, we want to make sure that students know how to use the different platforms available. This means also an upgrade to our Office suite, and we'll move to Office 2016 this fall. So students will be cutting edge on the operating system and on their Office suite. We'll continue to use the Adobe Creative Suite. That's only 1 year or one generation behind the current software, which is their cloud, Creative Cloud suite, and we're looking at how we can incorporate that, at least in our green screen room, where we'll have a number of computers that are built specifically for editing and for rendering the different products that come out of the Adobe suite. So continuing to try to move forward on that technology and make sure that our students have all the opportunities to really utilize the tools that they're given. Fees. Maybe some of you have heard about class fees. Each year you come in the fall, you pick up your schedule, you change your schedule, you stand in line to see Mr. Hadley, and then you go over and you pay your fees. And you pay fees for classes such as chemistry or art or drama or different electives that we have. The state of Idaho has said that that's not appropriate, that students should have a free education, and that includes fees. So next year, for classes that award credit, there will be no fees. And so I worry that we get more applause for the money than we do for the academics. I don't know. That will be for all of District 91. There will still be fees for things like activity cards or extracurricular athletics, things like that that are not being awarded credit. But any course that is awarded credit will not have a fee. This district will redo their funding formula for schools to help make up that cost, but we will always take donations to enhance all of our learning here. So this last year, there's been a lot of conversation about science. And science has really been a driving force for some of the changes that we are implementing next year. This last year, 33% of our incoming freshmen have already taken physical science. Now, those of you who've been at Compass Academy for a while know that our first kind of major course that our students take is Science, Fact, and Fiction, which is freshman English and physical science. With a third of the students coming in already having taken that then means we start to divide our classes and we start splitting up our class. And what we anticipate would happen is we'd end up tracking some of our students on a very different path than our other students. And we didn't want this to happen. And so we started looking at how can we approach this differently next year. So next year, all of our freshmen and all of our sophomores will be taking biology. And we will do a new integration for our freshmen using biology as the main course there. Now, we haven't forgotten about physical science. We'll have an intro to physics and an intro to chemistry class that students, even at the freshman level, can start taking to get a jump start on being able to take physics, chemistry, get onto AP physics and AP chemistry, and continuing to move through the sciences in high school. Somebody like that. So if biology is going to move to the freshman level as well, we're going to start looking at different integrations. I want to take a minute to talk about why we do integrations. Our integrated classes are built specifically to build relevance in the content. Very rarely do you go and just do English. If you're writing a paper, you have to have content that you're pulling in from somewhere else. And if you're in science, you typically have math or you have some other piece that you're using to help enhance that subject. And so when we created Compass Academy, one of the big pieces that we were going to do that was going to be different is we were going to integrate classes so that students would have that relevance. What we see in traditional schools, we see what we call silo learning. That's where you take one content area and you put it separate from everything else. And then the bell rings and you move to the next one. And those things don't intermix, they don't mingle. And so then we came up with this word called cross-curricular activities, where two teachers would connect together and they'd try to teach something together. And what would often happen is, when we did that, it looked kind of like grains just mixed together. You could still see the English in it, you could still see the science in it. But occasionally you get a really great project, a really great activity that allows for that to really mesh together. And instead of getting grain, you get more of bread. And when you look at it, you can't tell where one thing starts and when the other thing ends, and it's really mixed together. And so our really good integrated classes are the ones that are creating bread, where you can't tell where one class starts and the other ends. What we saw, though, is over the year, when we look at our integrated classes, we would have like science, fact, and fiction and English integrated all year long. And we kind of have these peaks and valleys of integrations in the project. Some of them are really great, and it's hard to tell where they divide or where the two different pieces are. And others kind of run parallel next to each other. We're writing a paper about a scientific piece that we're doing, and it's not quite as integrated as we want. So one of the thoughts was, what if we took a biology class that ran all year and we integrated it each trimester with something different, so we always get those really great projects that are really mixed well together. And if we did this in multiple classes, then by the end of the year you would have all these different classes that were integrated together at some point in time, meaning those final projects could incorporate knowledge from all sorts of different areas. And so it would look something kind of like this. All sorts of different pieces coming together, and at the end of the year you can bring in lots of different elements into that final project. So next year, we're looking at biology being integrated with English the first trimester, and bioethics class the second trimester, and then finally biohealth for freshmen. This is our freshman course at the end. Then we'll have world history and art like we do now, but it'll only be one trimester. Followed by a world history lit class, so we'll take our English teacher from the biology, drop him into world history second trimester, and we'll focus really on literature. Vocabulary and reading first try, literature the second try. And then world history and a business class the third trimester, allowing them to look at world economics, the history of business, how business has affected history and how history has affected business. Then our math is going to be a little bit different. Let me pull this up just a little bit so you can see this. One of the things that we did differently than basically every school in Idaho is we took a different track. When the state adopted the Common Core, there were two tracks in math. The traditional track, which is algebra, geometry, algebra 2, and what they call course 4. And the integrated track was integrated 1, integrated 2, integrated 3, and course 4. They weren't quite as creative on the integrated track with names. And so we took the integrated track. And what that does is it takes the standards that seem like they should be together, whether they're algebra, geometry, or algebra 2, and teach those standards together. The first one being heavy on algebra, pulling in geometry and algebra 2. The second one being heavy on geometry, pulling in algebra and algebra 2. And the third one being heavy on algebra 2, bringing in geometry and algebra 1. And what we found was one of the pieces that our students were really missing is what are called the 8 practice standards, math practice standards. And these are 8 standards or 8 skills that we want students to have in order to be successful in math. Really to start thinking like mathematicians and mathematically rather than just solving problems. And so in trimester 1, we're going to have a focus on those mathematical standards. These are the same standards that all of our math courses have, but we're going to really focus on those, allowing students to understand how to work through math problems, how to solve problems, how to really be mathematical. And then we'll split the two classes out and really focus on integrated 2 and integrated 1. The idea of this first piece is to give them the skills so that we can move quicker through the second 2 trimesters. Then finally, in the third trimester, we're going to bring in that writing element. One of the pieces that students really struggle with is explaining their process. How do I explain how I did this math problem other than just saying, well, there it is. Just, I did that one and then I did that one. But being able to explain why that happened. And so we're going to bring in the writing element into that third trimester, technical writing, so that students can explain their process in the math sequence. All of our freshmen will have math at varying times, but in a very similar schedule so that we can do some integrations when it makes sense and have them split out when students that are ready for more advanced pieces can move on. So exciting piece there, very different type of integration happening. Now we have 3 trimesters. We've had 3 trimesters for quite a while here in Idaho Falls. I came in only 4 years ago. I understand there was a big conversation about trimesters prior to me arriving, and I don't want to get into that. So we just decided, you know what, trimesters are great for some classes, but for other classes they need more time. Not necessarily more time in a week, but more time over the course of the term. And so we said, well, why are we stuck with trimesters? Why don't we add semesters? And so next year we're going to have trimester classes, and a number of our electives will be semester classes. The electives will still get only 1 credit for each of those semesters, which will also slow down a little bit of the, let me get as many credits as I can before so I can graduate 6 months earlier, 2 years earlier, etc. And in some of our courses, like for instance yearbook's really waiting for that final product at the end of the year to come out. And so to have students in the middle getting a grade on something that they're still working on that's going to come out towards the end may not make sense either, especially classes like a foreign language where they're progressing towards a proficiency level, or in, give me another one, Mr. Hadley. I'm missing it. So we'll go with those 2 right now. There might need to be a year-long course where the credit is awarded at the end rather than 3 times during the middle, where the first 2 really don't mean anything more than a progress report. And so next year, as you create that master schedule, or your individual schedules, you will see classes that are trimester classes, classes that are semester classes, and classes that are year-long, all fitting the needs of the course rather than the meeting the needs of a 3-trimester schedule. It's our brainchild, I think.
That's awesome.
Thank you. So let's talk master schedule, because this is the fun part. This is kind of what the blank slate looks like. Remember, we have 0 hour, 4 days a week. There's nothing in that first black square. And then across the way here we have 1st through 7th period. Now what we did is we met one Saturday and started talking about this. And in 4 hours, we thought we would be able to get a few classes scheduled, get a few things put together. And instead, in 4 hours, we found everything wrong with this idea and came up with maybe a plan that might work. And so we went with that, and we think it worked really well. And so here's what we've figured out. If we created some windows in the schedule. So we have these 2-period windows. If it starts at 1st, you have 1st and 2nd, 4th and 5th, 6th and 7th, allowing 3rd to be a time where a student could take lunch or a teacher could take lunch. Or we could shift that back and we could have 0 1st be a window, and 2nd, 3rd be a window, and 5th, 6th be a window, and then 7th is left empty so that students aren't there all day long, and 4th is left empty for lunch. So we decided if we make these windows, maybe we could fit all of our classes in there. And if the core classes only take up 2 windows, that leaves a whole nother window open for electives. Okay, am I making sense here? And then we decided we need some horizontal windows as well. So if we try to schedule classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, and then a handful that are scheduled all week, we could create another set of windows where students could fit classes in. And what ends up happening is you get all these little blocks, hopefully you can see those color changes, you get all these little blocks where you can put different classes. And it allows for less overlap and students to be able to get into classes because they don't have as many conflicts. At least that's what the hope is. And as we've made this schedule and built it, we've really focused on how can we make these pieces all fit together so that students can get the classes that they want. So one of the things we did was so back to that freshman schedule, the biology, their integrated biology class will be Monday, Wednesday, Friday during those 3 windows that the freshmen have. And then their world history and their math will take up one of the other 2, so they're fit into another window. So now we have their core classes fitting in 2 windows. We still have another window open, plus we have Tuesday, Thursday open on in between their biology, and then students can decide if they want to be here early or late and fit all those pieces in. Mr. Hadley and I took a minute this afternoon to try to build a freshman schedule and see what we could do. And if the student decided they wanted to take 0 hour, let's say 0 hour Spanish, we were able to get that student 28 credits during the course of the year, and the student was taking seminary. We don't necessarily recommend that, but it is possible that students could fill a lot of different pieces. None of those classes had overlap and able to get a number of different types of electives. So we're pretty confident this is going to be a neat tool, a neat way for the students to build their schedule. We were joking today, and we are kind of serious about it. We kind of want to see the first student to get 100 credits at Compass Academy. And we think it's actually possible. We were able to get a senior schedule with 22 credits. pretty easily. So we think it's very doable, but we're not necessarily telling you make sure your kids' schedules are full, but there's lots of opportunities for students to take lots of different classes. So I'm going to have Mr. Durfee come back up here. He's going to speak on behalf of someone else and share a little bit about what this AAC thing is. There's one more maybe.
All right, so I'm gonna explain this backwards first. So I've been teaching for 10 years. One of my biggest frustrations has always been that at this stage, from junior high on, I've got 120 students-ish. When I was teaching 8th grade, if one of those students showed up in my 8th grade class not able to read, with 120 students, there's really not a lot of way for me to remediate that kind of difficulty at that point. And that's been a frustration of mine for 10 years, that we don't, as an education system, have a way to help somebody who is behind in something, significantly behind in something, because really that requires someone to sit down one-on-one with the person for a while, and then they can get caught up. But it requires that kind of one-on-one attention that a person who has 120 students and is seeing all of them all day long, there isn't time in my day for that. So, the person I'm filling in for is my wife, Mrs. Durfee, is a facilitator here as well. And so we've been discussing this a lot for a while, and Mrs. Smead kind of was discussing this a lot last year, the idea that we need a tutoring center of some kind. So the AAC stands for the Academic Achievement Center. And so the idea is, when I was in college, I had a part-time job working at the college tutoring center. And I would sit down with a student, and I had several students that I would meet with once or twice a week, and I'd help them on their writing, and a couple of them I helped them on their Spanish. That's a standard thing on a college campus, that you can go and an upperclassman will help tutor you with the things that you're struggling with, and then that's how you can get ahead at something or get caught up in something. So the idea for next year, and we've started this a little bit this year, Mrs. Durfee started a writing center with some writing tutors. The idea is to blow it up and make it much bigger next year. So we've got a whole room in the building that will be dedicated to this room that is just there so that kids can show up and schedule an appointment with a tutor, or just show up to a very quiet, like library-esque environment that's just a good study environment where they would have a tutor there to help them if needed. So the plan then is Mrs. Durfee will be working with the tutors and giving them actual tutor training. She worked as an individual tutor for years before coming to teach here, and I don't want to brag because I'm biased, but did some kind of miraculous things with some young kids, getting them caught up and off special education IEPs and things, just because all they needed was some one-on-one help. And so she will be working with the juniors and seniors who are going to be working as tutors. The biggest areas of requests for help have been math and English and Spanish. And so those areas will definitely be offered, but there's some of the tutors have also said that they're definitely willing to help out with biology or chemistry or any of the, or physics, any of those. So there's several different ways that you could do this. Next year that there will be a tutor in the room most of the time that you can just walk in and ask for help on something. But the other way, and I really want to strongly encourage some students to do this, is you can actually, just like I worked in college, you can schedule a regular meeting time with a specific tutor and just say, I'm struggling with writing, I would like to work with you for the next 6 months and get caught up so that I feel confident in writing instead of panicking every time I get a writing assignment in English class. And so that's the plan there. I'm really, really excited about this. We'll work a lot on the culture of the students so that they are more comfortable with the idea of going and accepting some tutoring help, because that will be one obstacle to overcome. But this is kind of an answer to something that I've been frustrated with or struggling with for 10 years of teaching, that we need a way to help remediate's the wrong word. We need a way to help a kid who just needs some extra help, who's either behind in something or just doesn't feel confident in something. And the traditional structure of school just hasn't allowed for that. And so that's, this is the answer to that. I wish my wife was here doing this, because I think I probably am forgetting something. So that's something to look forward to, and juniors and seniors, juniors here, I think she's already hired for next year, but sophomores, that's something that you could look at and possibly become a tutor, but parents and students, I'd like really strongly encourage you to talk to your students about this idea and have them take advantage of this. I've had a couple of parents already say, what she really needs is just a tutor, and here's the opportunity, and so we just want to take advantage of that. Thanks.
And it's free. The money worked last time. I thought they would have cheered for that. With our revamp of the schedule, we've actually been able to dedicate 2 rooms for different purposes. And so room 203 next year will be dedicated to the Academic Achievement Center. So we'll have a home, it will have a place, it's very visual. It's got a big window so that students walking by can see, hey, there's something going on in there that might help me, a quiet place for students to work. So, I did have another slide for you.
Oh, there it is.
Okay. There's always been a focus on content in high schools. You got to get your math, you got to get your science, you got to make sure that you pass these tests, you got to get 10 out of 10. And content is great, but what happens is when we teach content, we end up teaching students over and over and over again. And in every class, we teach the same skills. You'll hear teachers talk to one another saying, didn't you ever teach your students to do? And they did teach them how to do that, but the students aren't transferring that to another subject. And so content, when content's the focus, that's what happens. So we want to change our focus to our school-wide learning outcomes. So every Monday, when we have that late start Monday, the facilitators are here working, and the last couple of years they've been focusing on content, writing skills and aligning things amongst the content. Next year we are focusing on school-wide learning outcomes. These are our collaboration. I like that clap. These are collaboration, oral and written communication, agency, and knowledge and thinking. And we adopted these from the New Tech Network. They're very powerful rubrics with very specific knowledge, skills, and attributes that we want our students to have when they leave here. And because of some different things that we've been working on district-wide, we've had to put these back on the back burner a little bit. But next year they're coming to the front. And this is going to be what our conversation is about on Monday mornings, is how do we teach students how to be learners and not just teach students stuff. And that will then apply to every single one of our facilitators. It doesn't matter what their content is. Their content then becomes the vehicle for teaching these skills. And so they get both the information, but then they also get these skills and attributes that we want our students to have so that they can be successful when they leave. So we've got a couple new hires for next year. We've got Mandy Drysdale. She's currently teaching over at Eagle Rock, and she will be coming to teach math here next year. Jennifer Hawes, we just hired her this week. She will be picking up our music classes. We'll have music classes first and second hour. 3 different pieces. We'll have a band, a choir, and then Tuesday and Thursday we're actually adding a music elective that will integrate with some kind of a video production and being able to help students learn how to add music to their presentations, their videos, etc. So it makes sense. And then Kelly Sheridan is coming to us from Virginia. Fortunately and unfortunately, Miss Rasmussen is heading off. She's going to continue her studies and get a master's in art and design, and so we had to find somebody to fill that spot, and so Kelly will be filling that spot, and we're excited to have her join us in the fall. So these are 3 more hires. We're also going to be hiring 1 more position before the school year, and that is for another business technology piece to help pick up some of those business classes. We're going to add a marketing class and a couple other pieces to help students really see some of the relevance in the business aspects that they're going to be facing when they get out of high school. So we've talked about a whole bunch of stuff, all kinds of new features, new things that are be coming out next year. This is really exciting for us because it's a lot of work that we've been some of these things have been since we opened. Some things that we wanted to change and adjust and do differently. As we move forward, that learning redesigned is always going to be part of what we do and what we're looking at. So next year will be an exciting year, lots of new things happening, lots of things going on. And one more thing, if we're going to redesign all that stuff, then we've got something that's still in development, but we're going to redesign one more piece, and we're going to redesign our logo, so to speak. So still some of the same aspects, but something just a little bit more modern than what we had even 4 years ago. So we're kind of excited about that. You'll be seeing more of that in the coming months as well. So thank you for coming. Myself, Mr. Hadley, Mr. Murphy, and Mrs. Smead will be up here available for questions if you have any. But have a great night, and thank you for coming in.